Hey there friends, Cynthia here in my quilt lab where I am working on a beautiful block of the month named Symphony by Banyan Batiks by Northcott, made by the lovely designers at Frog Hollow Designs. Thank you, Linda and Deborah. It is month 10, block 10. Month 10, block 10. Let's jump right in and see what this month is all about. Let's go. All right, so block number 10, month number 10, it is the Carpenter Star. And this is going to be pretty similar to what we did last time in month 9 or block 9, where we're making 2 blocks, 1, 2, and you're just making them several times to make a bigger block, which you see here. I first got to jump in before we get started. On the instructions, the page 31, there are several errors in the making of the half square triangles. It's going to say up at the top, fabrics 15, 16, make 16 to yield 32. That's wrong. Put all those half square triangle numbers, cut them in half. It's half that amount. Somebody got a little overzealous when they were thinking of making half square triangles. You're only making 16, 8, 8, and 8 respectively in the pairings that you see there on page 31. All right, so let's jump in. So there's 2 blocks. You can see there's 1, there's block number 2, and then you're using 2 of each to make the big block. And I'll just show you my exploded version right here. And here's my happy finish blocks over here. Okay, so it's another pretty simple block. We're just doing a bunch of half square triangles and just some regular squares. Now, like I have mentioned before, please keep your fabrics nice and labeled, because especially in this neutral palette, there are several that look very similar in the picture. So I want to make sure that you're putting the right color combinations in the right order. And just to go back to these macular blocks, the only difference is between the 2 blocks is that bottom piece. Sometimes it's that grayish pinkish color, sometimes it's that dark grayish one. So that's block B. I am working on block A. Did all my block B's off camera. So I'm saving a couple of block A's to do here on camera. So let's jump right in and get started. All right, so I've mentioned this before if you've watched any of my previous videos about labeling everything, but I like to lay everything out in a nice finished block so that I know what I'm coming back to, especially since so many of these colors are so similar. I don't want to screw up. So this is my exploded version. You can see the 2 squares on some of these. That's our half square triangles. Each of these are going to make 2 half square triangles, and I just have layered them so that you can see how they're going to look when they get finished. So you can see we're using fabrics 2, 8, 10, 12, 15, and 16. All right, let's talk about those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half square triangles. So as the instructions will say in the tips, you're going to make a little line through the middle diagonal of one of the squares, and I recommend picking the lightest fabric. So I think your tan, you can do either or, but for instance, on that white or the blue or that kind of dark brown and the white, put on the white one. It's going to be easier to see. The only thing that gets difficult is that blue combination with that dark brown combination. I used my yellow pencil chalk to make the line so it can be seen. All right, so draw that diagonal line. On that diagonal line, you're going to be stitching 1/4 of an inch on either side with it. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos, I like to use a handy dandy little tool. It's a ruler that has a slot in the middle for that middle diagonal, and then it lets you draw a line on either side for that 1/4 of an inch away. So if you like this, I'll put this, what I use, in the description below so you can grab one of these. Or you can just use your regular ruler and put that diagonal across. Just remember, you're not sewing on that diagonal. You are sewing 1/4 of an inch on either side of that. After you've done all of those stitches on 2 stitches per square pairing, you're going to cut on that middle diagonal, and it's going to open it up so that you get 2 half square triangles. So look a little something like that when it's finished. All right, so I'll take a few pictures of one of these on camera. I'll do the rest of them off camera. Once I got all my half square triangles done, we're going to square them down. I'll show that on camera as well. And then we will move on to the machine. There's the two half square triangles. I thought I would square them up on camera because they are ever so slightly bigger than what we need them to be. So grab my little ruler. And if you've seen me do this before, you know I like to do a lot of different things. I like to use all the tools I got. Now, if you have a rotary mat, now's the time to grab it, because having a rotary mat and doing a bunch of half square triangles all in a row, it's going to make your life significantly easier. And it's just a fun little tool to have. All right, so this needs to be squared down to 2.5 inches, and I'm using this 45-degree angle on my ruler to lay on top of the diagonal of the two pieces of fabric. And you can also see that my fabric is going beyond the 2.5 inch marks, both inside the ruler and or going off outside. So I know I need to absolutely square this down. After I've laid my ruler down on that diagonal, I'm going to swipe the two sides that I'm able to. 1, 2. And now this is where that rotary cutter or that rotary mat comes in real handy. I would just pick my ruler up and move my mat around, but I'm not using that right now so that you can see me just do it with regular old mats and cutting boards and all that fun stuff. Now I have 3 sides that I can line up against my ruler. Again, I'm using that 45 to go into the diagonal of the two different pieces of fabric, and I'm using the 2.5 to line up on the edges of the 2 edges I've already cut. And once I see everything is nice and neat, then I can do the last 2 edges. 1, 2. All right, so do that with all of the half square triangles, and then let's go back to our blown apart block and start talking about putting them together. All right, so there's our half square triangles and our regular block. So this is just a 9 patch now. So all we got to do is put this 9 patch together first in rows and then attach the rows together to make the block. And then we do this several more times until we piece those squares together. But let's jump in ahead. Let's talk about this. So on the last block, I did a little bit of experimenting of how I like to press these things. And sometimes I thought it was nice to press it to one side, especially if it was a plain piece of fabric. But you can see it's not very consistent which way to press. So I did end up pressing it open most of the seams just to see how flat it gets. And when I press the seams open, it just makes it nice and flat. So that's what I'm going to be doing for this block. Now that said, if you prefer to press to one side or the other, or if you want to nest, like have these go out and these go in so they nest at those 4 corners, that's up to you. Please use whatever pressing method you like, but I will be pressing everything open because I just like the way everything sits when it's all nice and flat. So the first thing together is to put these together in rows. So I'm going to do these seams and then this seam and then this and this. So I'll take a handful of pictures as I start stitching so that you can follow along. And remember, you have 2 blocks here. So you're going to be doing this twice. Okay, let's get stitching to the machine. And there's the finished block. Remember, you're making 4 of these. This is the fabric 10A block, and you're making 4 of the fabrics block 10B, so that you can use 2 of each of them to make the big block. So let's put it together in what it looks like in its final formation. All right, so there's the final formation. You can see it does a pretty little checkerboard right here in the center with the 2 different corners that all meet up. This is very similar to that block 9 that we did that had something different on the diagonals. All right, so now you got a 4 patch, right? You got 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks. You're going to put them together in rows, and then you're going to put those rows together in the one final block. I will say that if these blocks are supposed to be 6.5 right now, so if you need to trim up any of the edges to make them nice and straight, go ahead and do that before you do piecing. Little quick tip, when you're starting to put these things together, all the places where these diagonals of these half square triangles meet, that's supposed to be that 1/4 of an inch. That's where you're going to want to aim your needle when you're starting to sew. So that little corner right there should match up with this corner on the other side, so you get nice tight points. So go ahead and throw pins in to make sure that those seams are going to meet up nicely, so that you get really pretty blocks when you get to the end. All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a few pictures, put this block together, and I'll see you at the end with another finished block for month 10. To the machine! And there it is, the finished block. Let me just flip her over so you can take a quick peek at the back side. Opened up all my seams, well, except for the half square triangles, but everything else has been opened up. It just makes it nice and flat. Remember, you're making this block 2 times. 2. You got 2 tin blocks. All right, hey, put a label on these. Say that they're block number 10 and set them aside in the pile of all the other blocks that you finished up. We still have 2 more blocks to go. That's right, 2 more months, and then we get to put all this fun together in a big jigsaw puzzle. And yeah, I hope that you stick around with me. Give me a thumbs up if you like this, share this with your friends, and I hope to see you next time in my quilt lab. Have a good one and keep quilting. Bye-bye.